Right now, at this very moment, someone with half your talent and a fraction of your resources is building the exact future you've been dreaming about, not because they're smarter, but because they refuse to look away. Good evening. I want to talk with you today about something that separates the successful from the unsuccessful, the fulfilled from the frustrated, the person who builds a life of meaning from the person who simply drifts through the years. It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's not even talent, though these things help. It's focus. More specifically, it's the ability to stay focused on your vision until you achieve it, no matter what. You see, most people never really decide what they want. They have wishes, certainly, preferences, vague ideas about a better life, but a vision, a clear, definite picture of what they're working toward. That's rare. And even among those who do have a vision, a genuine goal they've thought through and committed to, most will abandon it at the first sign of difficulty or distraction or doubt. And that's the tragedy, because the world doesn't reward wishes. It rewards persistence. It rewards the person who knows what they want and refuses to be pulled off course. Let me tell you something you already know, but perhaps haven't fully considered. You will become what you think about most of the time. If this isn't mysticism, it's a law as reliable as gravity. Your mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. Give it a target, and it will work day and night to hit that target. But take your eyes off the target. Let your attention scatter to a dozen different things, and your mind doesn't know where to aim. So it aims nowhere, and you end up nowhere. The human mind, you see, can only hold one thought at a time. Right now, in this moment, you're thinking about what I'm saying. A moment ago, you might have been thinking about your work, or your family, or some worry that's been nagging at you. But you can only think one thought at a time. The question is, what thought are you choosing? Because here's the truth: most people don't choose their thoughts. They let their thoughts choose them. They wake up and immediately begin reacting to the news, to their problems, to other people's opinions and emergencies. They spend their days putting out fires, checking notifications, scrolling through distractions. And at the end of the year, they wonder why they're no closer to their goals. But you're different. Or at least you can be. You have a vision. Maybe it's crystal clear, or maybe it's still forming. Either way, you know there's something you want to build, something you want to become, some contribution you want to make. The question is, are you going to stay focused on it? Let me tell you what focus really means. It doesn't mean you think about your goal every single second of the day. That's not realistic, and it's not necessary. Focus means that your goal is the organizing principle of your life. It means that when you make decisions, small ones and large ones, you ask yourself, does this move me toward my vision or away from it? It means that when distractions come, and they will come constantly, relentlessly, you recognize them for what they are and you gently, firmly, bring your attention back to what matters. It means that when obstacles appear, and they will appear, because anything worth achieving will test you, you don't interpret them as signs that you should quit. You interpret them as the price of admission. You expect them, you prepare for them, and you push through them. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but Earl, you don't understand my situation. I have responsibilities. I have bills to pay. I have people depending on me. I can't just focus on my dream. I have to deal with reality. And you're absolutely right. You do have responsibilities. You do have to deal with reality. But here's what I want you to understand. Focusing on your vision doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities. It means fulfilling them with purpose. It means seeing them not as obstacles to your vision, but as part of the path toward it. The person who's building a business doesn't ignore their family. They work on their business so they can provide a better life for their family. The person who's developing their skills doesn't neglect their current job. They excel at their current job while preparing for something greater. Focus doesn't mean recklessness. It means intentionality. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose your vision is to write a book. A real book that helps people. That matters. Now, you have a full-time job. You have obligations. You can't just quit everything and write for 12 hours a day. But you can write for 1 hour a day. You can wake up an hour earlier, or use your lunch break, or turn off the television in the evening. 1 hour a day, focused and protected, will give you a complete manuscript in less than a year. But here's the catch: you have to actually do it, every day. Not when you feel like it. not when inspiration strikes. Every day, or as close to it as humanly possible. Because focus isn't a feeling, it's a discipline. And this is where most people fail. They start strong. They're excited about their vision. They work on it for a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even a month. And then life gets busy, or they get tired, or they start doubting themselves. They miss a day, then 2 days, then a week. And before they know it, they've lost momentum, they've lost focus. And eventually, they lose the vision entirely. But you don't have to be most people. You can be the person who understands that the path to any worthwhile goal is not a straight line. It's a series of daily decisions. Daily choices to show up, to do the work, to keep your eyes on the target even when progress seems slow. Because here's something wonderful about sustained focus: it compounds. Every day you spend working toward your vision makes the next day easier. Every small success builds your confidence and your capability. Every obstacle you overcome makes you stronger and more resilient. And over time, not overnight, but over time, you begin to see real, tangible progress. And that's when something magical happens. That's when your vision starts to pull you forward instead of you having to push yourself toward it. That's when the work becomes less like drudgery and more like destiny. That's when you realize that the person you're becoming in pursuit of your goal is just as important as the goal itself. Now, I want to address something that trips up a lot of good people. It's the question of whether your vision is realistic, whether it's too big or too ambitious or beyond your current capabilities. And here's my answer: it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the purpose of a vision isn't to be realistic. The purpose of a vision is to be inspiring. The purpose is to pull you forward, to call forth abilities and resources you didn't know you had, to make you into someone capable of achieving what seems impossible today. Will you achieve your vision exactly as you imagine it? Maybe not. The details might change. The timeline might be different. But if you stay focused on it, if you keep moving toward it, you will achieve something remarkable. You will become someone remarkable. And that's what matters. Because success isn't really about reaching a specific destination. It's about the person you become in the pursuit of worthwhile goals. It's about discovering what you're capable of when you refuse to quit, when you refuse to be distracted, when you refuse to let circumstances or critics or your own doubts determine your direction. So let me ask you, what is your vision? What is that thing you think about when you let yourself dream? What would you build or create or become if you knew you couldn't fail? Whatever it is, I want you to write it down, not someday, today, this evening before you go to bed. Write it down clearly, specifically, in the present tense as if it's already true. And then I want you to read it every single day. First thing in the morning and last thing at night. Why? Because you need to keep it in front of you. You need to remind yourself, constantly, of what you're working toward. Because the world will do everything it can to make you forget. The world will offer you 1,000 distractions, 1,000 excuses, 1,000 reasons to settle for less than you're capable of. But you're not going to settle. You're going to focus. You're going to take one step today, and another step tomorrow, and another step the day after that. And you're going to keep stepping, keep moving, keep believing, until your vision becomes your reality. Vision without constancy is merely a daydream. You know, I've met thousands of people over the years who had brilliant visions. Absolutely brilliant. I've sat across from men and women who could describe, in vivid detail, exactly what they wanted to build, exactly who they wanted to become, exactly what their life would look like 5 or 10 years down the road. They had it all figured out. The business plan, the steps, the timeline, everything. And do you know where most of them are today? Exactly where they were when I met them. Some of them are worse off, actually, because now they carry the additional weight of disappointment. They look back and wonder what happened. They had the vision, didn't they? They knew what they wanted. So why didn't it work out? Here's the uncomfortable truth, and I want you to really hear this: having a vision doesn't make you special. Every person walking down the street has had a vision of something better at some point in their lives. The checkout clerk at the grocery store once had a vision. The taxi driver fighting traffic had a vision. Your neighbor who complains about everything, they had a vision too. So what happened to all those visions? Where did they go? They evaporated, like morning dew in the sunlight. Because a vision without constancy, without that daily, relentless, unwavering commitment to keep it alive, is nothing more than a pleasant daydream. It's entertainment for your mind. It makes you feel good for a little while, gives you something to talk about at parties, helps you fall asleep at night imagining a better tomorrow. But it doesn't change anything. Now, before you think I'm being harsh, let me tell you something important. This isn't about judgment. This is about understanding how the world actually works so you can work with it instead of against it. You see, the difference between a daydream and an achievement isn't the quality of the vision. It's not that successful people have better ideas or clearer pictures of what they want. Often, it's quite the opposite. The difference is constancy. It's showing up, day after day after day. It's keeping that vision alive in your mind and your actions when everything around you is screaming for you to give up, to be realistic, to try something else. Think about it this way. A seed has the entire blueprint of a mighty oak tree contained within it. Everything it needs to become is already there, but that seed needs more than just the blueprint, doesn't it? It needs constant moisture, constant nutrients from the soil, constant energy from the sun. Day after day, after month, year after year. If any of those elements stops, if the rain stops, if the nutrients run out, if the sunlight is blocked, that seed never becomes what it was meant to be. Your vision is exactly the same. The blueprint is there. You can see it clearly. But it needs your constant attention, your constant energy, your constant belief, or it will never grow beyond the seed stage. And here's the beautiful part, the part that should give you tremendous hope. Constancy doesn't require genius. It doesn't require special talents or lucky breaks or perfect circumstances. It simply requires the decision to keep going, to water that seed every single day, whether you feel like it or not, whether you're seeing immediate results or not, whether other people believe in it or not. Most people give up too soon because they mistake a daydream for commitment. They think that because they want something badly enough, it should somehow materialize without the daily discipline of focused action. But that's not how it works. That's never been how it works. The person who achieves their vision isn't the person who wanted it most. It's the person who stayed with it longest. It's the person who understood that every single day matters, that constancy is the bridge between imagination and reality, and that the daily decision to continue is what transforms a daydream into a destiny. So the question isn't whether you have a vision. The question is, are you willing to be constant? Because if you are, that vision will become as real as the ground beneath your feet. Distractions are the silent assassins of destiny. Let me tell you about a man I knew. Brilliant fellow. Had more talent in his little finger than most people have in their entire body. He had a vision too, wanted to write a book that would help people, really help them understand how to take control of their lives. He talked about it constantly. Had the whole thing outlined, knew exactly what he wanted to say. That was 12 years ago. The book, never written. Not a single chapter. Oh, he started it dozens of times, but something always came up. A phone call, an invitation, a new project at work, a crisis that needed his attention, a show he wanted to watch, an article he had to read. He's still talking about that book, by the way. Still believes he'll write it someday. But he won't. Because somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, he made a choice. He chose distraction over destiny. And the terrible thing, the truly terrible thing, is that he doesn't even know he made that choice. He thinks he just hasn't found the time yet. He thinks he's been unlucky or busy, or that life kept getting in the way. But life didn't get in the way. He let the wrong things in. Now, here's what you need to understand, and this might be the most important thing I tell you today. Distractions don't announce themselves. They don't walk up to you and say, "Hello, I'm here to destroy your dreams." They're far more sophisticated than that. They come disguised as opportunities, as responsibilities, as things you should probably pay attention to. They come wearing the mask of urgency and importance. And they steal your life 1 minute at a time. Think about your day yesterday. How much of it did you actually spend on your vision, on your most important goal? An hour, 30 minutes. Be honest now. And how much of it disappeared into things that seemed important in the moment, but looking back, didn't move you an inch closer to what you really want? That's how it works. That's how years pass and nothing changes. Not because you stopped caring. Not because you gave up. But because you allowed 1,000 small distractions to nibble away at the time and attention that should have been devoted to what matters most. Here's the thing about attention, and this is critical: your attention is the most valuable resource you have. Not your time, your attention. Because you can have all the time in the world, but if your attention is scattered, if it's constantly being pulled in a dozen different directions, you'll accomplish nothing of real value. The successful person, the person who actually achieves their vision, has learned something crucial. They've learned to guard their attention the way a guard protects a vault. They've learned to recognize distractions for what they are and to politely, firmly say no to them. Does this mean ignoring everything else in life? Of course not. You have responsibilities. You have people who need you. You have work that must be done. But here's the distinction: those aren't distractions. Those are legitimate parts of your life. A distraction is anything that pulls you away from both your responsibilities and your vision. A distraction is that thing that seems urgent but isn't important. That thing that's easy but not meaningful. That thing that feels productive but leads nowhere. Social media, endless news consumption, gossip, drama, other people's emergencies that somehow become your problems. Perfectionism disguised as preparation. Busy work disguised as progress. These are the assassins, silent, subtle, or smiling. But once you see them for what they are, once you understand that every moment you give them is a moment stolen from your destiny, something powerful happens. You become selective. You become protective of your attention. You start asking yourself constantly, is this moving me toward my vision or away from it? And when something doesn't serve your vision, when it's just noise disguised as signal, you have the courage to turn away from it. Not rudely, not dramatically. You simply don't let it in. You protect your attention the way you'd protect anything precious and irreplaceable, because that's exactly what it is. Your attention, focused daily on your vision, will create miracles. Your attention scattered across 1,000 distractions will create nothing but regret. The choice is yours, and you make it new every single day. The goal is not to avoid obstacles, but to outlast them. I want to tell you something that might sound discouraging at first, but stay with me, because by the end you'll see why it's actually the most liberating thing you could possibly hear. Every single obstacle you're facing right now, every setback, every difficulty, every roadblock that's standing between you and your vision, they're not going away. In fact, there are more coming. Bigger ones, tougher ones, obstacles you can't even imagine yet. And here's the part that stops most people coldly: if you're waiting for the path to clear, if you're waiting for things to get easier, if you're waiting for a time when you won't have to struggle anymore, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life, because that time never comes. I've watched it happen over and over again. Someone starts working toward their vision with great enthusiasm. They're excited, they're motivated, they're ready to conquer the world. And then the first real obstacle appears. Maybe it's a financial setback. Maybe it's a rejection. Maybe it's a failure that embarrasses them. And they stop. Not permanently, mind you. They don't quit outright. They just pause. They tell themselves they're regrouping, reassessing, waiting for a better time. They convince themselves that this particular obstacle means something significant, that perhaps they're on the wrong path, or that the universe is telling them to try something else. But here's what they don't understand. What you must understand: obstacles aren't signals. They're not messages from the universe telling you to quit. They're not signs that you're on the wrong path. They're simply the price of admission. Think about it this way: every worthwhile destination has a cost. If something is valuable, if it's meaningful, if it's worth achieving, there will be obstacles protecting it. That's not a flaw in the system. That's the system working exactly as it should. The obstacles are there to test whether you really want what you say you want. They're there to separate the committed from the merely interested. And here's the beautiful secret that successful people know: you don't have to be smarter than the obstacles. You don't have to be more talented or more privileged or more lucky. You just have to be more stubborn. You just have to outlast them. Because obstacles you see are temporary. They feel permanent when you're facing them, but they're not. Every obstacle has a lifespan. Every difficulty eventually runs its course. Every setback, no matter how devastating it feels in the moment, eventually becomes just another chapter in your story. But if you choose to be, you can be permanent in your commitment. You can be the constant while everything else changes. You can be the immovable object that refuses to be moved, no matter what comes at you. I'm not talking about being rigid or stubborn in a foolish way. I'm not suggesting you bash your head against the wall over and over expecting different results. Sometimes you need to find a different approach. Sometimes you need to go around instead of through. Sometimes you need to pause and gather strength. But you never quit. You never walk away. You simply outlast. Think about water wearing down stone. The water doesn't have a strategy. It doesn't have superior force. It just keeps showing up, day after day, year after year, century after century. And eventually the stone yields, not because the water got stronger, but because the water never stopped. That's your model. That's your advantage. Every obstacle you face is testing your commitment. It's asking you, do you really want this? Are you serious? Or are you just playing around? And when you keep going, when you face that obstacle and find a way past it, over it, around it, or through it, something wonderful happens. You become stronger, more capable, more confident, and the next obstacle, while it might be bigger, finds you bigger too. The person you become through the process of outlasting obstacles is the person capable of achieving the vision. Without the obstacles, you'd never become that person. So stop looking at obstacles as enemies. Stop seeing them as reasons to quit or pause or wait. See them for what they really are: confirmation that you're on the right path, working towards something worthwhile. And then simply outlast them, because you can. Your vision must become more real than your present circumstances. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. What's more real to you right now, your vision of the future you want to create, or the problems you're facing today? Be honest with yourself. When you wake up in the morning, what dominates your thinking? Is it the clear picture of where you're headed and what you're building? Or is it the bills on your desk, the difficult conversation you need to have, the uncertainty about next month, the gap between where you are and where you want to be? For most people, the answer is obvious. The present circumstances feel real, solid, undeniable. They're right there in front of you, demanding your attention, insisting on being dealt with. And the vision? Well, the vision feels like a nice idea, a pleasant thought, something you hope might happen someday if everything works out just right. And that's exactly why most people never achieve their vision. Because here's a fundamental truth about how human beings operate: we move toward what feels most real to us. We give our energy, our attention, our decisions to whatever has the strongest grip on our consciousness. And if your present circumstances feel more real than your vision, then all your energy goes into dealing with those circumstances. You spend your days reacting, coping, surviving. And your vision, it sits there in the background, getting fainter and fainter, until one day you realize you can barely remember what it was. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but Earl, my circumstances are real. I can't just pretend they don't exist. I have real problems that need real solutions. And you're absolutely right. Your circumstances are real, and I'm not suggesting you ignore them. But here's what you need to grasp: your vision is real too. In fact, in the most important sense, your vision is more real than your circumstances. Let me explain what I mean. Your present circumstances are temporary. They're a snapshot of where you are right now, in this moment. A year from now, they'll be completely different. 5 years from now, unrecognizable. They feel permanent because you're living in them, but they're not. They're just the current chapter in your story, and chapters end. But your vision, if you hold it firmly in your mind, if you make it vivid and clear and definite, your vision begins to shape everything you do. It influences every decision you make. It determines which opportunities you say yes to and which ones you decline. It guides your actions, and your actions create your future. So in a very real sense, your vision is the blueprint for what's coming. It's tomorrow trying to become today. And the more real you make it in your mind, the more surely it will manifest in your life. Think about the great achievers throughout history. The inventors, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the leaders. Do you think their present circumstances looked promising when they started? Most of them faced poverty, rejection, ridicule, failure. Their circumstances screamed at them to give up, to be realistic, to accept their limitations. But they didn't, because they had made their vision more real than their circumstances. They could see what didn't exist yet. They could feel it. They could describe it in detail, and that vision pulled them forward through all the difficult circumstances until the vision became the circumstance. Here's what you need to do: starting today. You need to spend time, real dedicated time, making your vision vivid in your mind. Not just thinking about it casually, but actively building it, detail by detail, until you can see it clearly, until you can almost touch it, write it down, describe it fully. What does success look like? What does your life look like when you've achieved this vision? Who are you? What are you doing? How do you feel? Make it so specific, so detailed, so alive in your imagination that it begins to feel inevitable. And then, when your circumstances start demanding your attention, when the problems and pressures and difficulties show up, you don't ignore them, but you handle them as someone who's on their way to something greater. You make decisions based on where you're going, not just where you are. Because when your vision becomes more real than your circumstances, something shifts. The circumstances become temporary obstacles on the path to something certain, rather than permanent walls blocking an impossible dream. What you hold in your mind with clarity and conviction, you will hold in your hand with time and persistence. Make your vision real. Action today is worth more than perfection tomorrow. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it's just to yourself. How many brilliant ideas have you had that never went anywhere? How many times have you known exactly what you needed to do, but you didn't do it because the timing wasn't quite right, or you weren't quite ready, or you needed to learn just a little bit more first? If you're like most people, the answer is dozens, maybe hundreds. You've had the ideas, you've felt the inspiration, you've seen the opportunity. But between the idea and the action, something happened. You convinced yourself you needed to wait, to prepare more thoroughly, to plan more carefully, to make sure everything was perfect before you took that first step. And while you were waiting for perfect, someone else, someone with less talent, less preparation, less advantage than you, they started. Imperfectly, clumsily even, but they started. And now they're ahead of you, not because they were better, but because they moved. That's the trap of perfectionism, you see. It sounds so reasonable. It sounds like wisdom. I just want to make sure I do this right. I don't want to waste my time on something that isn't going to work. I need to have all my ducks in a row first. But here's what's really happening. You're afraid. Oh, you might not call it fear. You might call it caution or prudence or being responsible. But at its core, perfectionism is just fear wearing a respectable suit. It's the fear of looking foolish, of making mistakes, of failing publicly, of not being good enough. And so you wait. You plan, you prepare. You tell yourself that tomorrow, when conditions are better, when you know more, when you're more ready, that's when you'll start. But tomorrow never comes, does it? Now let me tell you what actually happens when you take action today, even imperfect action. Something remarkable occurs. You learn, not from a book, not from a video, not from someone else's experience. You learn from reality. You discover what works and what doesn't. You find problems you never would have anticipated in your planning. You develop skills that can only be developed through doing. And here's the beautiful part: every action you take, no matter how small or imperfect, creates momentum. It moves you from the realm of theory into the realm of reality. You stop being someone who's thinking about doing something and become someone who's actually doing it. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You can study the physics of balance. You can watch instructional videos. You can have someone explain the technique perfectly. But until you actually get on that bicycle and start pedaling, falling, adjusting, falling again, you're not learning to ride. You're just learning about riding. Your vision is the same way. You can plan it meticulously. You can make it perfect in your mind. But until you take action, messy, imperfect, uncertain action, you're not building your vision. You're just thinking about it. Here's something that took me years to understand. The purpose of action isn't to achieve perfection. The purpose of action is to create feedback. When you act, the world responds. It tells you what's working. It shows you what needs adjustment. It reveals opportunities and obstacles you never could have seen from the planning stage. But when you wait for perfection, you get no feedback. You stay in your head, spinning your wheels, perfecting plans that will need to be completely revised the moment they meet reality anyway. The successful person understands this. They know that the rough draft beats the blank page every single time. They know that the imperfect attempt beats the perfect plan. They know that movement, any movement in the right direction, is more valuable than stillness, no matter how well reasoned that stillness might be. So what does this mean practically? It means that today, right now, you need to take one action toward your vision. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Today, and it doesn't have to be a big action. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. If your vision is to start a business, register the business name today. If it's to write a book, write one paragraph today. If it's to get healthy, take a walk today. One action. Imperfect, immediate. Because that imperfect action today will teach you more and move you further than a perfect plan you execute next month. And the action you take tomorrow will build on today's action. And the day after that will build on tomorrow. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize that all those imperfect actions have created something remarkable. Stop waiting for perfect. Perfect doesn't exist, and chasing it is just a sophisticated way of standing still. Start today. Start messy. Start scared. Start imperfect. But start, I'll leave you with this. There's an old saying. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The same is true for your vision. Maybe you should have started years ago. Maybe you've already wasted time. Maybe you're starting later than you wish you had. None of that matters. What matters is what you do today. What matters is whether you're willing to focus your mind, discipline your actions, and commit to the daily work of turning your vision into reality. Because the world is waiting for what only you can give it. The world needs your contribution, your creativity, your unique vision brought to life. Don't make the world wait any longer. Stay focused on your vision. Work on it every day. Believe in it with everything you have. And don't stop until you achieve it. That's all for today. Good night and good luck.